I'm your host, Craig Pera, and you're listening to Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions. I am here with Craig Filek, and I have never done this before, man. I have someone like in my house. Craig is someone I met at the Big Tent Summit and really connected with his mission, and he happened to be coming this way, and he's here, so thanks for coming by.
Great to be here, man.
I don't want to do one of those boring intros where I don't do you justice, but can you tell everybody a little bit about your background, Craig, and lead up to what brought you to this beautiful place you're at right now?
Yeah, for sure. So before I do, though, I just want to say, dude, it's an honor to be here. I really enjoyed connecting with you in Loveland, and had a chance to listen to a couple episodes on the way down. I really dig what you're doing. I think it's really authentic. I think it's really just a force for good in the world. So before we even dive in, I just want to encourage everybody, if you're listening, go and give Craig a 5-star review. It makes a huge difference. Podcast hosts like Craig never asked for this, but I left one, took me like a minute. I just left it on Apple Podcasts. Makes a huge difference. So I just want to start with that because I know it can really, over time it can really change the time.
And I never ask, right?
Never ask.
Because, and this is what makes our topic so exciting. My listeners are struggling with shame. They're hiding, and I saw in your purpose map the shadow.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about that more on this podcast since I got back from the Mankind Project.
Oh, you did it?
Oh, no, I got back from the Big Tent Summit.
Yeah.
I'm doing the Mankind Project October 2nd.
Cool.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of people listening with in their shadow.
Yeah.
And let's more about you. Kind of give me that background.
Shadow. So okay, I'm gonna start where I'm at now, and then I'll sort of build the foundation under it. So, have you ever noticed the way high-achieving men get to the top of Success Mountain? They climb, check all the check boxes. They get the house, the wife, the kids, the cars, the toys, the vacations. They get everything that society tells us that we need in order to be fulfilled. And they get to the top of that mountain and they look around and they realize they're out of roadmap. They're not fulfilled. There's no clear next steps. And they get stranded.
Can I even add to that?
Yeah.
The vastness of the wealth, the space is a constant reminder of their emptiness.
That's right. Well, I like to describe it as dopamine is a monkey reaching for a banana, right? Dopamine is a motivation molecule.
Right.
It gives that monkey the impulse to reach just a little farther.
Yeah.
But a monkey surrounded by bananas has nothing to reach for.
Right.
And so these men start to feel, am I depressed? What's wrong with me? Is something like, why isn't this enough? And so that's where purpose mapping comes in. Right. I've been doing this for 15 years. I have guided some of the most successful men in America to clarify, now what? What do I do next? They know that there's more that life has to offer them. They just don't know how to find it because it's a different gear. It's a different game. And they don't know what the rules are. They don't know how to win. They're used to winning. And so they get paralyzed because they don't want to take a shot. I mean, just evolutionarily, as men, if we're out on the savannah and you and me and 5 other guys are stalking caribou or elk or something, if I'm not certain that I can land a kill shot, I'm doing nothing.
Right.
Because if I take a shot and miss, we all starve.
Right.
And that's just the way that the masculine brain is wired. And so men need a clear target. They need something to aim for. They need something to reach for. Climbing Success Mountain provides that in spades. But when you get to the top, what do you do next? So that's what I do, and I can go on about how I got there, but something came up for you. I want to hear it.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about the contrast between that lack of purpose and all of that sexual energy and shadow.
Sure.
And that conflict. And what I really like about this, guys, is that there's a lot of great purpose stuff out there. There's a lot of great purpose stuff out there. I have ADD brain. It's easy to overwhelm me. And quite honestly, I expected to be overwhelmed. And I knew it'd be good because I liked you. I knew your vibe. What you did here is crystal clear. Like it is step 1, step 2, step 3. But before we get into this, I want to hear a little bit about you. How did you get to this place? You had the job, you were making the money.
Bored out of my mind.
Tell me more.
Now what? So where does shame come from? Shame comes from when we're little boys and we're acting authentically and we got the stick and we're about to hit our brother for the candy. And no, good boys don't do those things.
Yeah.
Good boys don't say those things. Oh no, mama, I'm not that bad boy with the stick, right? I'm the good boy that you want to love and feed and put in a nice warm bed tonight and not leave out for saber-toothed tiger food.
Right.
That's where shame comes from, is we dissociate from a part of ourselves that we are told is wrong.
Yeah.
It's not guilt. Guilt is I've done something
Right.
bad. Shame is I'm bad. And it's very different. And so we end up, every single one of us has a shadow. Every single human on the planet has a shadow. But when we get to the top of Success Mountain and we don't have to do anything because the bills are paid, everything's handled.
Right.
We've got everything. The Maserati's in the garage. We've got the luxury vacation is, paid for. Now what? And that shadow starts to come up again, right? Because the work is a way, it's like workaholism, right? It's a way to push that down and then fill that hole with achievement and dopamine. But when we hit that top of that mountain, all of those unprocessed urges, all of the things we didn't choose to be growing up, they all come back. That's why in the midlife crisis, a lot of men will go back to adolescent behavior because they cut that off in order to act like an adult.
Yeah.
And then
My clients.
right?
Those are the men who find me when they get caught doing that.
That's right. So they'll go back and they'll buy the car that they always wanted. They'll go back and date the woman that they wish they, right?
Go to the strip clubs.
All that stuff.
Sugar baby.
Sure.
Sites now, all of that, right?
Drugs, or golfing.
Yeah,
Just endless
yeah.
play.
Doesn't have to be as destructive.
Doesn't have to be, but it's not generative. And I think that actually creates guilt because we know we're not living up to our full potential.
And not generative meaning it's not generating output in alignment with our purpose.
It's not contributing net positive in the world. Even a charity golf outing, right? It may contribute something, and I think there's a justification there, but really it's just a Band-Aid. That's somebody else's charity. Each man has a unique wiring, just like different dog breeds have a unique wiring. I used to have a border collie, smart as a whip.
Right.
I watched her. A friend of mine had a wolf shepherd, half wolf, half German shepherd, a puppy, probably about maybe 13, 14 months old. And my dog was 9 and probably about not quite half the size.
Right.
And they got in a territorial fight over a bone in this other dog's house.
Right.
Dog got really upset. My dog went right for the ear, whipped its ass. It wasn't even 30 seconds. The wolf shepherd was crying uncle. And it was like, whoa, that's a force of nature.
Yeah.
That's what that dog is designed for.
Right.
Bulls, right? Lamb, all this.
Right.
But if I took her hunting, she's not a Labrador. She's not designed for that. So we each have to figure out, what are we designed for? And then we have to bring that into the world. And unless you're Tiger Woods, it's probably not golf.
Right.
There's probably something else, something deeper, something more authentic. And as you know, the ways out of addiction, any kind of addiction, I've struggled with all kinds of addictions. The one I'm fighting right now is sugar. That's like breaking a heroin addiction. Literally.
Yeah.
Right?
I know. I'm guilty. The
It's hard.
Cookies are right over there.
Totally. I went full carnivore in January. I was having these crazy binge sugar coffee crashes. Coffee's not carnivore. It was the hardest thing. So I built a GPT and it taught me about potassium, magnesium, glycine, right? And so it's like I'm literally dosing myself with supplements to help regulate my neurochemistry so I don't get these massive carb binges.
Wow.
It's hard. So there's always something.
Yeah.
But I know that from all of the research that I've done over decades, like in Portugal, right? That the antidote for addiction is often connection.
Right.
Connection.
Important words around here. The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection.
Yeah.
Right.
And in order to connect, I have to be transparent about the things I'm ashamed of.
Well, it's I like to say connection with the vulnerability, and with that comes accountability. So there's a trio wrapped up in that connection and that openness that helps keep you on your game.
How did you discover that?
So I think I discovered it bringing my business experience into my recovery. There was this break, like this moment where like break a habit, make a habit was a revolutionary phrase because I hated sobriety. Kind of fucking sucked.
It sucks.
Fucking boring as shit, right? And you know, because I wasn't getting to the dysregulation, I wasn't practicing mindfulness. The healing environment in which I was in was really helpful, and we talked a lot about the past, but there was no focus on purpose. That was never, you know, thousands of hours maybe of in-chair therapy sessions, very, very little, if at all. Like, I'm trying to be generous, right? Talked about purpose. That's the first thing guys do when they get in my program, by the way, because that fire and that spark is everything. And it comes in layers. And I like what you talked about on one of the podcasts I listened to, where it's a framework. And because it's a framework, it grows.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I've found is that in our shame is our gold. And in Jungian psychology, gold is like the sliver of divinity. It's that little spark, as you just referred to it. It's that spark of God, cosmic consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And that gets buried. You know, Joseph Campbell would say, in the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure that you seek. So it's in the last place we would ever want to look. Yeah. And that's why we can't find it. And we look everywhere else, all the external places, but even inside we go roll our eyes in the back of our head and pray, you know, meditate, whatever. But we don't want to go down into those painful places, which is the shortcut. It's the hack. If I'm willing to admit something that I don't want to face, and I've got a process in my Wolfpack group, we call it a Get Real session, which starts with, what did you commit to? Back to the accountability thing. What did you choose to do instead? Oh, I don't know, I just forgot. But what did you choose? Right? I got to get down to, no, actually, I chose to ignore the impulse to walk away from the other thing I'm trying to break is coffee. Talk about boring. So I chose to ignore that. And then we do the 5 whys. Why, well, what about that? And then but what was under that? Okay, but what do you not want to face here? Okay, but what's under that? Right. Okay, what's at the real core of this? And then we summarize it with, okay, what's your major insight here? And then what's your next step, and when are you going to do it by? Get back into accountability. It's not this huge, I'm a horrible person. It's just, I slipped, get back on track. Right. But it's in the willingness to face the thing that I just wanted to slip into my blind spot. If I pull that forward, that's where my power is. That's where my energy gets trapped. And if I can bring that forward, then I can unleash that power towards moving towards my purpose and realizing my full potential.
Well, and you're using that feedback loop, that discomfort, as the ongoing growth mechanism. We're a lot aligned. I love that.
Well, because the tools are just fundamental. I mean, it's how the brain works.
Well, and behind every little, I'll say this, a hypothesis, behind every little sliver of a reaction that you have, that resistance that you have, is a massive growth opportunity that you're going to feel really good about. I just finished my internal family systems level 2 training. Cool. And the growth didn't come into diving deep into the wounds. It came with meeting each part where it was. And in summary, it's okay. Instead of, no, you shouldn't feel that way because look, everything's going great now. Or, no, that's bad because, that's your addict part talking. Right, so a lot of my guys, right, so, and they've got a treatment model that they're in. A lot of my listeners, because they come to me through the traditional sex addiction model. So my addiction is a disease. That's my addict talking. So in the suppression of that deepest, most primal, darkest shadow is also their golden shadow. And so the model that they're in has them conditioned to fear that which is in the shadow, which makes it really, really hard for them, which is why I'm glad we're having this conversation.
You know, I had a mentor once who talked about her practice is rewilding. So it's getting back in touch with the primal embodied nature. And she talked about wanting a stallion. She said stallions are uncastrated male horses, and they're very scary. And they're usually locked in the back of the barn. And, you know, if somebody goes to open the door, they could get killed. The stallion's going to rear up and stop the door.
Right, they're dangerous.
Dangerous.
Right.
Here's what she taught me. If you take that stallion out of the locked, trapped place that it's stuck in, and you put it out in pasture with other horses, it's almost like zone defense. Like particularly the female horses will kind of keep it in check, and it'll just relax, and it'll go back to being its generative, healthy, protective, dominant, but not reckless and dangerous.
Yeah.
It's the way that we trap it and suppress it and heap more shame upon it that makes it dangerous, and it causes the explosions.
Well, and that's what we do, right? We suppress, and it takes, for many of us, well, at least for me and most of you guys watching, a meltdown. Like the stuff, it gets exposed by a partner, or you sink to a new low and you realize, like, wait a minute, like I got to do something about it. But that's the journey, right? Like that's why, you know, I'm here talking to you about the stuff that we're talking about. Now let's bring it back to purpose. I love the way you started with essence, and you talked about something called your essence haiku. And I love haiku because it's simple. And this was the perfect way to orient me. And there's two factors. Can you tell me a little bit about this? Because I really dug it.
Sure. So the way that and we could put a link to this, but the way that I was a philosophy and religion major. And I was trying to figure out what is the nature of the good life. You know, my folks were well-to-do. I was adopted. I think you mentioned you were as well, right? And so I was raised with every privilege. I was like Siddhartha. You know, I'd sort of lived in this palace with it wasn't a palace, but it was a sizable estate. And it was, you know, it was overwhelmingly insulated from life. And I was trying to figure out, well, what is the good life? And what I did Mankind Project when I was 18. What I ultimately came to is that there is ways of being and things we do. So those are two sides of the quadrant.
Right.
And then the top and bottom are that feel better or feel worse. So the ways of being that feel better, that's our essence. And I give it the color blue, like the sky with no clouds. It's this spacious feeling of, oh yeah, this is me. This is the real me. This is the
I'm in my
me
authentic
all the
place.
Yeah, it feels good. I'd like to be here more. I don't know how I stumble into this, and I don't know how I stumble out of it, but it's on the map now.
And I think in the internal family systems model, they would call this essence the self.
You could.
Yeah, because I'm looking at even the words that you use to describe it are the IFS elements of the self, that core.
Well, let's get into that. That might be the gold. I might call this the persona. The persona is the character traits that I like about myself.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus your Jiminy Cricket, Holy Spirit, Divine Fingerprint. Gold.
So we start with essence, and then we look at strengths. So these are the things we do that feel better. They put us into flow. I give it the color green, like growth. And the emotional content of essence is joy or bliss. The emotional content of our strengths is fear, which is different than anxiety. Fear is, holy shit, I could die. Let's go, right? Like jumping out of an airplane or skiing off a cliff. If you're a skier your whole life, right, you know you're going to hit flow. I would die. That is too far beyond my zone of comfort, right? We only want to go 4% beyond our comfort zone, but in the direction of something we're passionate about. Speaking on stage, right? There's this feeling of, holy shit, I could die. And then you step in and do it.
Right.
And that sparks off adrenaline, which brings us fully present and fully focused in our body. And so it's a very visceral, it's a very embodied experience. Now, the strengths are things that we can go do. And the reason I give it the term haiku, I know what a haiku is. My mother was an English teacher.
Yeah.
But I use haiku a little bit loosely because it's 3 lines. It's just 3 adjectives or nouns, or in the case of the strengths, it's verbs.
Right.
But it gives you poetic license to kind of play with them and shape them until they roll off your tongue. Because that's what sticks in the
Until you feel it, because you've got this other metric here which says how in alignment,
0 to 100.
0 to 100. And so that forces you to,
the barometer.
like, is that really it? And then you sit on it and you're like, I'm almost there yet. I was on 70%.
Yeah.
And then I got stuck. And I said, that's okay. You know, it's okay to be stuck there because now I just get to think about it.
Yeah, right. As long as you get the cardinal directions, the north, south, east, and west of it, like you said, the framework will evolve over your lifetime.
Yeah.
So then we go to downfall. So under the strengths in the things we do that feel worse is our downfall. And this is red, like the red flag on a field, like, whoa, let's back that play up and try that again. Okay, this is behavior. So this is where guilt lives. It's anything we relate to anxiety, anger, depression, dissociation, addictions.
Got it.
Anything that we feel guilty about, even if it's sitting in LA traffic for 90 minutes, going to a job you hate, knowing I should be on stage, or I should be a screenwriter, or I should be doing this other thing, and I know I'm not living up to my full potential. I'm paying the rent or whatever, but I feel guilty because it's not what I'm truly capable of.
So is an example of my downfall that I'm working through is my competitiveness. One of the things, Craig, that I learned at the Big Tent Summit, and I've got a part that's like, you stupid idiot, how could you have not fixed these problems after 13 years? How could you have not known what all these people know? So I want to acknowledge, thank you for reminding me, part, but how collaborative everybody was. And I get so anxious, like, wait, does Craig do the sex and porn? Is he know him and he know him? And I think I remember him online, and I get in my head, and I remember one time at the Big Tent Summit, I looked over and someone said, hi, my name is Joe, I do this, how can I help your business? And I went, and I kind of got a little choked up because I saw how that subconscious competitive nature, the lawyer, the single role contributor. I mean, I served in executive roles, but I've been fired from them in a spectacular fashion, Craig. So my leadership skills and collaboration skills, I have titles that reflect that I have those skills, but I did not cultivate them over a lengthy executive career developing them. And so they've all illuminated recently. So that's an example, that competitiveness, right? When you say downfall. My downfall is I don't even realize how subconsciously competitive I am, and that keeps me from connecting with people.
I might even put competitive in your shadow, because if you're not realizing it, and it's a way of being that permeates lots of different forms of doing. So the doing would be, like you were saying as we were getting set up here, overthinking. And I was like, yeah, my downfall is over complexifying.
Got it, doing.
Right? It's a doing.
Things you do that
feel worse.
And what I love about this, and I'm so grateful for the corrections and guidance, because it's clear, you know, once I reflect that we're now on doing. Okay, good, let's keep going, keep going. This is really great.
So this is anything that takes you out of flow, or when you're out of flow, because a lot of times we slip, and next thing you know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and I finally kicked it, and I think purpose was really the way I kicked it, but I lived in Rochester, New York for 20 years, hated it, but I'm adopted, had a daughter unexpectedly with a woman that I met on a Grateful Dead tour right after I graduated college.
It happens.
It happens. I mean, it's, you know, adoptees typically repeat the cycle to try to work it out. And so I decided I'm going to stay. And I toughed it out, and I was very kind of awkward and weird in that, you know, if I was in Boulder or San Francisco, people would have been like, oh yeah, he's just like us. Rochester, it was not like that. It
Oh,
was
no.
very challenging. So I ended up nursing a 20-year weed addiction. And I kicked it every 6 months. I kicked it for about 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, and it was one of those things. It's like somehow I would slip out of flow, and next thing you know, I'd be looking down at my hand with a pipe full of weed, and it's got the char marks on it, and I'd be like, "Damn,
Magic! It happened so fast.
Like,
Magic!
how did this happen? Like, I tossed all this shit in the trash."
I used to say I would trip and I'd fall into a vagina.
These things happen.
It happens.
So anything that takes you out of flow, or when you're out of flow, you catch yourself doing these things, that's downfall.
Downfall.
Okay?
Got it.
Which brings us to now what we've done is, and this is the magic of purpose mapping. And I've never seen a TED Talk, I've never seen a book on this, I've never seen anybody else that does this. And I learned this from Mankind Project, where I first learned the shadow from Iron John and the whole, I'm not going to go into the weekend because you're about to go through it, but this is where I learned it. We just painted the shadow into a corner. So we did 3 or 4 quadrants. We think we touched on the shadow, but what most people think of as their shadow is their downfall. Moving into the actual shadow now gives us a way to pin it down and to get the gold out of it.
Right.
So you're saying competitiveness.
Yes.
Right? Any type of addict is in my shadow.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I wish it wasn't, and I don't want anybody to know that. And it doesn't always look like, the things that I'm most ashamed about. It's coffee. You're like, hey, I got an espresso, and I'm like, don't say that around me, dude. Like,
Does this bother you, by the way? I didn't even ask.
I'm totally fine, but it's one of those things where as soon as I got to sit down and write some copy, as soon as I've got to do something, anything outside of my normal range, right? I want to push something a little further. I go right for the coffee,
right?
Which is great, and it works like a charm. But then it throws my sleep off a little bit. So the next morning I'm like, it worked well yesterday. I could use a little bump. I'll do it again today. 3 months later, I'm going to my nature solo, like I just got back from it. I'm like, I gotta kick this. This is killing me. I'm looking at my Oura ring. I'm not getting enough deep sleep. I'm just in it, the burnout is starting to kick in. It's like, this is downfall. So the addict part of me, though, will find sugar. It'll find anything to latch on.
And justify it.
Oh, totally. And hide it.
As you were talking, I am rationalizing my nicotine gum, my coffee.
That's what good biohackers do. This is normal. This is what we do,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah, totally. I know. That's exactly it. So there's that. So we've got the shadow painted into a corner, which is tricky to do. And I've done hundreds of these. And every time a man puts his shadow on the map, there's a sense of relief.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I get to be my whole self. I'm not being shamed out of this. I'm not being judged. I'm not being kicked out of the room. I'm not being kicked out of my family. I'm not being kicked out of wherever. We're just here with all parts of ourselves. And I call the 4 quadrants that we just went through the map of psychological wholeness. Just to get it on the map is a profound experience for a lot of men.
The framework is so tight.
It's simple.
I'm a like, that's my thing. I love curriculum, and I love how you have distilled this information brilliantly.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, man. Okay, look, I keep interrupting to tell you how great it is, but let's talk about how it is.
So we're going to get the gold out of the shadow. This is the twist. And the twist is, it's really simple. We just look at, all right, well, what's the opposite of that? And there's a process for it. And we go through and we say, okay, the opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of addiction is altruism. The opposite of addiction is love, purpose, safety, connection. Great, all that, right? And then we go through and we look at all the shadow words in the haiku, and we come up with some twists for each of those, and we pick the one from each column that really lights us up. And I think this is what you might be describing as the self with a capital S, I imagine.
Yeah.
Right? It's the deeper, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so my goal is sweetly surrendered success. It's just, I'm not hustling and grinding. I'm not bashing my head against the wall with coffee and stimulants, right? I'm just surrendered in the flow of life and you're like, hey, you want to swing by Rockland? It's like, sure. It's right on my way, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was no effort in it.
It was so natural. And by the way, not something I do normally. Like I am, when I tell you I have been in a silo for 13 years, Craig, you'd be surprised to say, wow, you've done really well in that silo. Things are going to go really well for you now that you're coming out of it. It's shocking. My podcast, I recently joined Rotary Club because I realized I'm not practicing what I preach. But when you don't have people around you who to say, hey, check on, what about, I don't think you're looking at this thing over here. When's the last time you went out with your friends? When's the last time you connected with other guys in the program? So that was a really important learning for me, and I feel really grateful for it.
Yeah, so connected would probably be in your
Connected,
gold.
yeah.
In your gold. Then what we do is we connect the energy, attention, and power that was trapped in the shadow that we just released, and we just put a name on. That's like X marks the spot.
Yes,
on the map, right?
yes. Because now you're at the deepest shame to opposite.
Right. Because at the bottom of every black hole is a supernova.
Right.
If you go deep enough into it, you're going to explode into, wow, this is, holy smokes, this is in me as well. And then we take that energy, attention, and power, and we go from the lower left quadrant where the shadow is to the upper right quadrant where the strengths are. We connect that gold to the strengths. And so, because I can do my strengths, it's like gym equipment, right? Upper body, core, legs, right?
Yeah.
My strengths are creating, illuminating, and gamifying, which you see right
Yes,
here. This is what I've done. Right?
Yeah.
I do all that, and that's what I like to do. But when I am doing that with my gold, shining through those channels, right? It's like Schwarzenegger said, the muscle is built in the last 4 reps. When I think I'm done, right? When my humanness is toast, but the spirit comes through and pushes those last 4 reps, that's where the real growth happens. That's where the magic is. And so that's ultimately, now we've got that on a map. And then we build a strategic framework, vision, mission, milestone, like a 90-day, right, towards a 3 to 5 year mission. And then your next action step. And every single day, if you're taking one tiny, I mean the tiniest possible step.
The tiniest.
Towards your milestone, you're moving it forward, you're getting that dopamine, and next thing you know, you've achieved your milestone. And then you get another milestone, right? What is the one thing that if you got nothing else done in the next 90 days, this one thing would move the needle most towards your mission, your 3 to 5 year big, hairy, audacious goal. And I think that there's a critical distinction to be made here. A lot of people, pretty much everybody, conflate purpose and mission.
They're I'm glad you're talking about this.
Fundamentally different. I was a philosophy major. So what does a good philosopher do? They always begin by defining their terms. What are we even talking about? Purpose is existential. Who am I? Why am I here? How am I wired? Like a dog breed, right?
Yeah.
What is my nature? Mission is strategic. What am I going to do about that?
Right.
And if you climb a mountain and you get to the top and you say, I have achieved my purpose, well, suddenly you don't have a reason to exist. And the existential tailspins that I see men go into just because they've got the lexicon wrong.
That's when they call me, because it goes down to a dark place.
Yeah, right. Which is natural.
Yeah.
Because that's where the gold is. That's actually...
There's such vacancy when they lose that identity.
That's right.
Or, fastest growing demographic, Craig, are guys who retire.
Right.
They lose that identity as executive and boss and chief and the leadership, and then they're like use the wrong coupon at the supermarket.
That's right. Those are the guys I work with.
Yeah.
Can I give them my number?
Yeah, please. Look, give them. What I want to say before you do that is, not only is the purpose beautifully mapped out, and I'm going to give everyone a link to access this.
Yeah.
The mission is, and then the habits to accomplish the mission is beautifully organized, Craig. I really have not seen anything organized like this in a long time, and you guys know I'm tough to impress, man. This is so cool.
I appreciate that. Well, So we're gonna give this to everybody because I think it needs to be out there. But if you're a man who's
you're gonna give it to everybody?
we can get. Can I tell them how to get access to it?
Yes, please do. Of
So
course.
first of all, there's certain types of men who are not gonna do this, and I've worked with billionaires. My first client was a billionaire.
Really?
A lot of my private clients are, $20 million law firm, $500 million in real estate. I mean, these guys are not going to do this. I just want to give you my number. Just call me. I'll make time for you. Might not be a long time, but I'll tell you how men like you are finding a life of fulfillment beyond success. 847-238-8332. Text me, reach out to me. We'll have a quick chat. If it makes sense, we can schedule more time. For everybody else that just wants to...
You're right, they won't do it.
They're not going to do it.
I've done the 100+ million.
Yeah.
They're not doing it.
No.
They're not doing it.
Call me. And I've been coaching men like you for 15 years.
Yeah.
We're working on trying to get this out to 100 million men. So this is going to become purpose.ai. I want to give everybody listening access to it because I'd love feedback. And so it's $200 on the website, but if you DM me, if you go on my Instagram @purposemapping and DM me the word, what's a good word for?
Coach Craig?
DM me the word habits, and I'll set up a little autoresponder and it'll shoot you a coupon code and a link to get this, what we've been talking about here, for free. And everybody who finishes it, if you send me because it takes about 30 minutes to go through this and create a map. If you send me your finished map, I'm also going to give you the habit tracker that I created for my Wolfpack group. This is a group of men. I've got entrepreneurs. I've got one of the top outdoor educators in the country. I've got a naval captain who's about to leave the Pentagon in about a year. And so anybody who's looking for what's next, this will help you. And then I'm going to give you the tracker that my men's group is using to hold each other accountable and build camaraderie and momentum. And we can certainly talk about if that would be a good fit for you, but I at least want you to have the tracker. So DM me Purpose Mapping @purposemapping on Instagram. DM me the word habits, plural, and the autoresponder will send you a link and a coupon code and you can get in. And then when you get done, email me, Craig@purposemapping.com. Send me what you come up with, and I'll give you the Wolfpack Habits Tracker, and you can get underway. And if there's more you'd like to do together, we can talk about it. Yeah, I'm going to send this to my list too. Do this. I mean it. I'm not kidding. This is so awesome for me, right? We're all on this journey together. Craig and I are on this journey together. It is valuable for someone who's just starting their journey, and it's valuable for someone who's done a lot of work on themselves. So I just want to thank you for being here. Yeah. So great to see you in person, and this is such a wonderful thing that you've given to the world. And I'm going to have all of Craig's contact information in the description. And thank you so much for listening. It is Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions. Embrace your power of choice and feed the right wolf inside you. And please contact Craig for this wonderful tool. Thanks for being here, brother. It was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.